Disappearing entirely may seem like a strong move, but in reality it grants the other person a clean break, a definitive ending that allows them to move on. The mind, when left undisturbed, will slowly erase what no longer engages it. But when your presence lingers, just beyond reach, just outside of grasp, it creates a sense of unfinished business, an open loop that they cannot close. This is where true power lies. Rather than vanishing like a ghost, you must become an enigma, a force that exists in their periphery but never fully reveals itself. You do not block, nor do you chase. You do not beg, nor do you completely withdraw. Instead, you position yourself as someone who is always just out of their control. Your presence must feel like a shadow in their world, subtle, yet impossible to ignore. This is achieved through calculated, indirect visibility. A carefully placed piece of information through a mutual acquaintance, a photo that finds its way onto a shared social space, effortlessly showcasing your growth, your evolution. An unanswered message, not out of malice but out of sheer indifference. The idea is to remind them of what they once had access to, without granting them any real way back in. The more they notice you without being able to engage with you, the more they feel the weight of their loss. People crave certainty, and when they know for a fact that someone is gone, they eventually make peace with it. But when someone is neither entirely gone nor fully present, the mind fixates. They wonder why you haven't reached out, why you seem to be doing well without them, why they feel your presence even in your silence. It creates an obsession, a slow-burning mental prison where they seek answers but find none. By remaining strategically present rather than vanishing completely, you maintain control of the narrative. They do not get to rewrite the past in a way that makes them the victor. They do not get to erase you from their thoughts. Instead, they are left questioning, unsettled, and aware that you exist beyond their reach. This is a power far greater than mere absence. It is not just being gone, it is being unforgettable. The human mind craves certainty. It seeks patterns, conclusions, and a sense of closure to make sense of events and relationships. When something is resolved, the mind can categorize it, process it, and eventually move on. But when something lingers in ambiguity, when it remains open-ended, it breeds obsession. This is where power is found. By introducing uncertainty into someone's perception of you, you disrupt their ability to mentally place you in the past. They are left questioning, unsure of where they stand, unsure of how to interpret your presence or absence. Sometimes you acknowledge them, sometimes you do not. Sometimes you engage, sometimes you remain distant. This inconsistency is what keeps them mentally entangled, unable to fully detach from the connection. When you are completely absent, they can tell themselves a story that you are gone, that you are no longer relevant, that they are free of you. But when you weave unpredictability into the dynamic, that story never fully forms. They do not know if you have moved on or if you are indifferent. They do not know whether you are purposefully avoiding them or if they are simply not significant enough to elicit a response. This lack of clarity works to your advantage. It keeps them looking over their shoulder, wondering, analyzing, and searching for meaning where there is none. The key is subtlety. If you are erratic, they will label you as unstable. If you are too cold, they will conclude that you no longer care. The goal is to strike a balance. Just enough engagement to prevent closure, just enough absence to create longing. You answer a message one day, then ignore them the next. You appear in places they frequent but act as if their presence is of no concern to you. You show just enough emotion to be memorable but not enough to be predictable. This creates an internal conflict within them. Do they reach out? Do they wait? Are you intentionally distant or are they simply no longer significant? The mind hates loose ends, and when faced with one it fixates. While they are lost in uncertainty, you remain in control. Mastering this art ensures that they do not move on at their own pace. Instead, they remain suspended in a state of emotional limbo, waiting for answers that will never come. And in that waiting, they remain yours. People like to believe they are in control of their emotions. They convince themselves that they can move on, let go, and forget without consequence. But emotions do not work that way. They are not obedient servants, but restless forces that resurface when triggered. The key to true influence is not in forcing someone to remember you, but in ensuring they can never fully forget. Absence can be healing. When someone is completely removed from a person's life, time allows wounds to close and eventually memories fade. They adjust to the silence, rewrite the past to their liking, and move forward with a version of events that serves their ego. But when a presence lingers, when small, unpredictable reminders stir emotions that were once buried, it disrupts that process entirely. The past is never quite past when it refuses to stay silent. The mind is vulnerable to sudden, unexpected triggers. A name mentioned in passing, a song that carries old emotions, a fleeting encounter that revives dormant feelings. When you maintain even the slightest form of presence, strategically placed and carefully controlled, you awaken emotions they believed were long gone. This is not done through confrontation or direct engagement. It is done through subtlety, through the art of remaining just enough in their world that they can never fully put you behind them. A well-timed moment of recognition, a glance that lasts too long, or even complete indifference in the right setting. Each of these can stir emotions more powerfully than a dramatic argument or plea for attention. When someone expects hostility but is met with disinterest, they question their own importance. When they expect to be ignored but receive an unpredictable response, they are thrown off balance. The more uncertainty they feel, the less control they have over their own emotions. This creates an emotional loop, one where they try to rationalize their feelings but cannot because they lack closure. They tell themselves they are over you, yet something lingers. They convince themselves you no longer matter, yet their emotions betray them. They are caught between logic and feeling, between moving on and being pulled back. This conflict keeps them mentally and emotionally tied to you, ensuring that no matter how much time passes, the echo of your presence never fully fades. Control is not about forcing someone to see you in a certain way. It is about ensuring they cannot see you any other way. People craft narratives to protect their egos, rewriting history to paint themselves as the hero, the victim, or the one who made the right choice. If you allow them to tell that story unchallenged, they will erase you from their mind in a way that benefits them. But if you shape the narrative yourself, without ever directly engaging, you ensure that their perception of you remains exactly as you intend. The key is indirect influence. You do not argue, plead, or try to correct their version of events. Instead, you make sure that the world around them contradicts the story they tell themselves. This is done through carefully placed information, small but powerful details that reach them through sources they trust. A mutual friend casually mentions your latest success. A social media post subtly highlights how well you are doing. You appear in places where they least expect, looking entirely unaffected, thriving without their presence. When someone believes they have won, that they have moved on faster, hurt you more, or diminished your worth, their confidence grows. They feel justified in their choices, solidified in their decisions. But when evidence contradicts their assumptions, it unsettles them. If they expected you to be broken but see you thriving, doubt creeps in. If they assumed you would reach out but are instead met with silence, they question their own importance. If they assumed you would reach out but are instead met with silence, they question their own importance. This subtle disruption forces them to rethink their narrative, and in that uncertainty, you reclaim control. It is critical that this influence remains effortless. If they sense that you are trying to get their attention, they will dismiss you as desperate. But if the reminders of your presence seem unintentional, as if the universe itself refuses to let them forget you, the impact is far greater. They begin to wonder if they truly understood you, if they misjudged your strength, if perhaps they lost something more valuable than they realized. By shaping how they perceive you without direct confrontation, you prevent them from neatly closing the chapter on you. Their mind remains engaged, questioning, and unable to fully let go. They may tell themselves one story, but the world you've crafted ensures that they will always feel another. Nothing unsettles someone more than realizing that the person they once underestimated, hurt, or left behind has risen far beyond their expectations. The greatest form of power is not in revenge, not in confrontation, but in undeniable transformation. When you evolve into a version of yourself that they no longer recognize, stronger, more successful, more untouchable, you render their past influence over you meaningless. Most people expect those they leave behind to remain stagnant. They assume their absence will leave a void, that their presence was somehow irreplaceable. But when they see you not just surviving but thriving, something shifts. It forces them to reevaluate their own role in your story. Did they really matter as much as they thought? Were they as impactful as they believed? If you are doing better without them, what does that say about their importance? These questions, left unanswered, create a silent but powerful disturbance in their mind. This transformation must be authentic. If you chase success or happiness solely to prove a point, it will be hollow and they will sense the performance. But if you channel your energy into genuine self-improvement, into becoming someone who is truly fulfilled, the effect is undeniable. You do not need to announce your progress. Your evolution will speak for itself. Others will talk about your achievements, your presence will radiate confidence, and your life will naturally project the fact that you have moved beyond what once held you back. Growth is the ultimate form of distance. It is not about making them miss you, it is about making them realize they can no longer reach you. When you become someone too powerful to be affected by their past actions, you take away any control they once believed they had. They can no longer define you by who you were when they knew you. That version of you no longer exists. And this is what truly haunts them, not your absence, but the realization that you have transcended the need for their presence entirely. They may seek closure, validation, or even a way back into your life, but they will find only a version of you that no longer sees them as relevant. The ultimate revenge is not in proving them wrong, it is in proving through your growth that they never truly mattered the way they once believed. Most people fear being forgotten, but true power comes from something far greater, being unforgettable. When someone tries to erase you from their mind, they seek to place you in the past, a closed chapter they can revisit on their own terms, or not at all. But when you become an unshakable presence in their subconscious, not through force but through carefully crafted influence, they are never truly free of you. The goal is not obsession, nor is it manipulation. It is ensuring that your presence lingers in a way they cannot escape, no matter how much time passes. Being unforgettable is not about dramatic gestures or loud declarations. Those are fleeting, temporary, and easy to dismiss. Instead, it is about planting small, powerful moments into their consciousness, memories that resurface at unexpected times, emotions that stir without warning, the way you carried yourself, the way you responded instead of reacted, the way you disappeared without explanation yet remained visible enough to be missed. These elements create an aura of mystery and significance that their mind cannot fully process or release. When they see someone who reminds them of you, when they hear a phrase you often said, when they visit a place you once shared, these are the triggers that ensure you remain a part of them, even in absence. But the most powerful way to embed yourself in their memory is through evolution. When they expect you to remain the same but discover you have become someone far beyond what they knew, it forces them to reconcile with the fact that they never truly understood you. That realization alone is enough to keep you in their thoughts indefinitely. Indifference is a powerful tool. When they expect hostility but receive nothing, when they anticipate pain but instead see your success, it disrupts their perception of the past. People expect closure, they expect patterns, they expect you to react in a way that confirms their assumptions. But when you refuse to give them what they expect, you force them into a state of confusion, one where they must rethink, reanalyze, and ultimately remember. You do not chase, you do not seek validation, and you do not play into their narrative. Instead, you become a presence so deeply ingrained in their mind that no amount of time or distraction can erase you. They may move forward, but they will never fully move on.